I'm 36. If you're in your 20s or 30s, watch this. I've always had to learn things the hard way. Advice never really landed with me. And for the longest time, everything looked fine. There was nothing on the surface that gave away the struggle that was going on underneath. So, what I want to tell you about are some of the slow, subtle life lessons I've learned over the last decade that have really helped push me into a meaningful life that I'm proud to build. Come walk with me. Number one, when nothing's wrong, nothing changes. This is one that is so easy to slip into. When you get into the routines, the wake up, the go to work, the promotion, the annual pay raise, all of these things just start becoming this repetitive system. And you slowly start to kind of lose grip with reality. Everything becomes repetitive and you just continue to drift until you hit an immovable object. So it kind of just boils down to this idea that you will continue in a straight line. Maybe it's in the right direction, maybe it's not in any direction at all, until some sort of outside force acts upon that. So this condensed is the idea of living without intention. If you live without intention, you will end up somewhere, but it might not be where you want to be. Number two, time doesn't slow down. You just stop noticing. This one happens really slowly over time, and it's been one that's been a big reality for me lately as I get into those mid-30s years. The conversations with my friends that used to happen weekly, some on a daily basis. Now it's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks, it's a month. Some of those have turned into every 3 months, every 6 months. It happens slow over time, and that's the same to be said about time in general. It doesn't slow down, you just kind of quit noticing. Those things become the new normal, and then next thing you know, it's been months, it's been years since you've spoken to people you were once close with. Time drifts people apart, and it slowly starts to happen unless you act proactively on it. Number three, living your own life means losing people. And this is going to happen. So it's become one that's been really, really abundantly clear to me now in my mid 30s that, if you follow your own path and you don't follow everybody else's path, and you don't follow society's path, it's going to happen. You're going to, realize that path that you're on kind of starts separating from those other people that you see. When you follow a similar life path to people, your proximity stays closer together. And when you're on your own path and going in a different direction, that is when distance comes in. And over time, that distance gets greater. And at a certain point, there are going to be people that are no longer in your life anymore. And that's okay, because you're on your path and you're living your own truth. Number four, comfort is how your life goes quiet. And this is one I have been battling a lot with lately. Living in a country where everything is super comfortable, it makes me miss the rough edges that I experienced, living somewhere like in Vietnam. But this is the fact that if you live in a very comfortable, very predictable bubble, everything starts becoming bland. Everything becomes comfortable. And you start maybe chasing things like vanity. I know for me that I can see this in my everyday life, finding that, sometimes I think the other day I spent a few hours just shopping for, a certain shade of blue jeans. And I realized, all right, this is completely a product of comfort. This is when, you really have certain levels of needs checked off. These are the things that start to become important. And that's why comfort can dilute everything around you and kind of become the quiet killer. Number five, your body always collects the bill. During my teens and 20s, I ate pretty recklessly. If it was fried, it was going to be on my plate. I drank soda at every possible occasion. And I drank alcohol like a fish. I vaped. I did absolutely nothing for my physical and mental health. And those things started to slowly take a toll. So for me, the physical manifestation started to take a toll on my mental health. And it got to a point where I was very unhappy and depressed. So neglecting my physical health, had kind of these compounding effects, not only on me, not only was I overweight, not only did I have high blood pressure at 29 years old, but they started to, take tolls on my mental health. And I was depressed, I was unhappy, and, I got to a point where something absolutely had to change. Number 6, the most dangerous lies are those which you repeat. So this one has become a big part of the last couple of years for me because I realized a lot of the things that I believed and told myself were just repeating lies that after a certain number of repetitions, after a certain number of years, I started to really believe those things. So one of them being that I hated running. I just always told myself, it's bad on your joints. You always hate it. You're always out of breath. It's miserable. But no, I didn't. I just hated discomfort. And I stayed in my lane of comfort because, any kind of change is uncomfortable. I started to believe the lies I'd told myself about what I enjoyed doing for work, about different parts of my relationship. And I realized that, after a certain number of times, and after you've repeated yourself a truth, or what you call a truth, a certain number of times, that lie will become a truth for you. Number 7, friendships don't end, they fade. So as you go throughout your late 20s, people start to get partners. People start to get married. People start to have kids. And once these things become priorities in a majority of people's lives, that friendship with you doesn't rank quite as highly on the list. And I'm not saying those friendships go away, because I still have some friendships with people I've been friends with for 20 years that are, stronger and better than they've ever been. But what I am saying is that they do take, a concerted effort to stay on top of those friendships, and they just take a different shape. It's not going to be the, hey, I speak to this person, almost every day or every week. It might turn into once a month, once every 3 months, once every 6 months. The friendships just change, but the elements of them do stay the same, and that's perfectly okay. Number 8, the game changes, and most people never notice. So it's so easy to get caught in a repetitive cycle where you're, chasing that goal that's right in front of you, that you never take a second to look at the big picture and say, hey, is this still a direction that, I want to go in? Is this a path that I still care about pursuing? I think that, for me, this was, chasing promotions and more money and more impressive titles at work. These things are not important. You may be winning, but it's a game that you don't really want to play anymore, that you're just playing because that's the thing that's right in front of you. So that's how the game changes. And most people just continue playing to play, and not because it's actively the game that they've chosen to be in. Number 9, nothing you were drawn to was random. So I've had the biggest problem over the last 20 years that I always get these hobbies and these obsessions, and there's something about me that really needs to turn that into my professional venture. Whether that was kicking footballs, whether that was playing music, that was fishing, cycling. I've always had this built-in mindset that I needed to turn that into something that I did professionally. But that is not the point. I think the point is that, that there are these things that we become interested in, and it's perfectly okay for something that you're obsessed with. So let's say, like for me right now, it's, maybe this YouTube thing, or running, cycling, whatever it may be. It's perfectly fine to have hobbies and interests and for that not to be the thing that is going to be the buy all end all for you. It's all about building up different attributes, finding the thing you're interested in, and being able to connect those dots for yourself down the line. Number 10, people are exhausted from pretending. It's so easy to find yourself in a place where, you've added so many different coats of paint to your life. There's a different color for every season, a different interest, and all of a sudden you're living under these multiple coats of paint, if you will, and you start to lose sight of what is actually underneath all of that paint altogether. So you start to lose yourself and start to lose what you really believe, what you really think. That you may have a thought that you have just because your parents had it. You may think a certain way about something just because your partner does. Just because other people around you believe and think a certain thing doesn't mean you have to. And most people just don't take the time to actually, stop and consider, what are the things that I believe in? What are the things that I care about? And what are the things that I end up manifesting and doing in my life, whether that be professionally or as an interest? And I think that that's one that has become much more evident for me over the last few years. Number 11, responsibility feels different when it's chosen. So about a year ago, I sat down and I looked at a lot of the different chapters in my life. And what I realized is there was a key distinction between two types of chapters I had in my life. One was, things where I was running to something, and one was where I was kind of running away from something. And what I realized is those chapters where I was running to something were much more fulfilling, and they were much more in touch with who I am and, kind of active choices I'm making as a person. So I think that there is this key distinction of, kind of when you can kind of drift and you end up places that, these responsibilities don't feel the same. But when there are responsibilities in a life and things in life where you've chosen to be there, those are the things that end up meaning the most. Number 12, you can build a CV and still miss your life. It's so easy to get caught into this rhythm where we're constantly chasing the next thing. What's next? What's next? What is my next job? What is my next accomplishment? And get so caught in the very thing that's in front of us and kind of, get myopic about these other things that are going on in life because we're so focused on the thing that is imminently in front of us that we just get caught in this rhythm of chasing, level after level after level, thing after thing, and never take a moment to, live life. Maybe take some time to explore a different career avenue. Maybe take some time to go live in another country, see things from a different perspective. It's so hard to do that. It's so easy to get caught into this rhythm where we're constantly chasing accomplishment, constantly chasing that next mark on our CV. And we miss out on so many important and beautiful things about life while doing that. I don't have this figured out. I just notice things faster now. If any of this felt familiar, you're probably who this channel is for. This is just me paying attention in real time, real days, real choices, no polish. And if you want to keep exploring this with me, just hit subscribe. And either way, thank you for giving me your time.